Hi, I'm Robert. I'm going to be showing you yoga massage today for the hands, arms, and wrists with a specific focus on downward facing dog and plank and the problems that people have related to compression at the wrist. These are simple and easy to use techniques that any yoga teacher or yoga practitioner, friends and family can use on each other to work on these common issues. So Mandy, go ahead and hop up for me. I want to have you go into downward facing dog. Now, Mandy has a fairly simple, easy downward facing dog. She doesn't have any problems in this pose. I've worked with her in this before. You can see that she almost perfectly goes into alignment. I don't have to give her much in the way of adjustment or options. For many people, the first order of business is I will tell them that they can bring their hands closer to their body, and that's going to take some of the pressure off. If they increase the space between the hands and the feet, that tends to increase the pressure, increase the strain. When you move the hands in, was that a little more comfortable, Mandy? Yeah. What I'm mindful of is everybody's hands and wrists are different than mine. I work as a body worker. I put more compressive force on this than some people. Some people don't like downward facing dog because of the pressure they feel at the hand or wrist. And you can see with Mandy here, she doesn't even have a crease here at the wrist. For many people, the angle that they're at will control whether or not they feel any discomfort here. So Mandy, if you bring your hands closer in, does that decrease or lessen or increase the strain?
It lessens.
Lessens the strain still. So everybody's going to be a bit different. They don't have to follow just my guidelines. I just want to make sure that the student feels comfortable. And for many people, what I find is they don't have issues with the legs and feet. They don't have issues with the back. They have pressure and problems at the wrist. So slowly stand up for me, Mandy. And then go ahead and have a seat back on the seat here. So most people will have problems because they're compressing their carpal. When we talk about carpal tunnel syndrome, it's because the radial and ulnar nerves that go through this area wind up being impinged, wind up being compressed. In my industry as a massage therapist, I see lots of massage therapists with these problems. But there are also issues because, Mandy, if you were going to type, can you put your hands out like that? Lots of people, when they're using their wrists this way, when they're typing, or can you grab on the steering wheel? They're essentially using their hands and forearms. They're using these muscles to control movement through here. So I'm going to compress right here. Can you move your hand right there, Mandy?
How do you?
Yep, just like you move, like you're driving. Okay. Now turn your hand like you're typing. Do, 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 do. And I'll change the position right here. You feel the movement through your forearms? So when people think about moving their hands, they're thinking about, they're moving their fingers when they're typing. But the muscles that are helping control that movement are not just in the hand, they're also in the forearms. So lots of people who are having problems with this, bringing it back to downward facing dog, part of the reason they're having problems with this is these muscles and tissue, it feels like they have shortened, but they've shortened across the carpal tunnel. They've shortened across the junction between the radius and ulna and their carpal bones. So there's a compression that's happening here because this tissue is like it's shrink wrapped and shortened. My whole goal is not only to put Mandy's hand and her wrist in a position that feels more comfortable, it's to eventually release these tissues so it takes pressure off of the wrist. The first order of business with most students is to take them out of downward facing dog and put them in half downward dog. And we'll show that next. I'm going to have Mandy come up, and we're going to go from what we were doing with downward facing dog to the wall to what we called half downward dog. Now, Mandy's going to place her hands at just about shoulder height, and I don't want her to put too much pressure in the wrists. From here, she can move her feet probably a little bit back, her tailbone, her sacrum, just a little bit back. And what I want her to do is I want her to be able to drop her head down and her shoulders down through the back. So can you move the hands even a little bit? I mean, sorry, not the hands. Can you move the feet just a little further back? Now, there you go. Now, you see how it feels like your body's falling down through your shoulders? Is it too much on your arms at all, Mandy?
No.
Okay. How does it feel with your head if you let it rest? Feels good? Okay. It's not too much on the hands and wrists? Okay. What happens with half downward dog is we're mostly taking the legs, the low back out of the equation. We're allowing you to focus on hand position. And just like we talked about in a previous series with alignment in downward facing dog, alignment in mountain pose, the alignment in downward facing dog with the hands is either the pointer finger or the middle finger facing straight up, making parallel lines. So look at your hands there. You want straight lines either through this or this finger. Parallel. There you go. How does it feel on your hands and wrists? Does it feel different?
Yeah.
How does it feel different to you?
I feel like there's less weight.
She felt like there was less weight. So that little cue, we didn't even go into extreme minutia. We're just giving her some feedback about her hands and wrists. And when she says that, what did it feel like?
There's less weight.
That's what we want, because we don't want to feel like this is being compressed in a way that feels uncomfortable to Mandy. So as we have Mandy on the wall here, she was saying that she had a little bit better feeling in her hands and wrists because of that slight change in her hand position. What I want to do in Mandy's case is, because she's got a little bit of rounding here, I want to see if I can get her to lengthen her spine more. And I think in her case what's going to happen is, Mandy, can you bring your hands like a little bit lower, like maybe down to there? Now sink in and tell me how that feels. Now, when she was up, you see how there was more of a crease here? I wanted to decrease that, but when she sank in, now how does this feel on your shoulders, Mandy?
Feels better.
Feels better, and that's what I was looking for. I don't want her to jam her shoulder joint by bending it further back. I want her to feel comfortable. How's it on the hands and wrists? It's easier. Okay. So it doesn't matter to me if she's higher or lower. I'm just giving her options. One of the great things that happens from this position is, because there's not so much pressure on her hands and wrists, is she can literally start to bend her elbows. She can move through the humerus at the shoulder joint. She's able to explore all of this motion from the arms, from the forearms, from the hand and wrist, from the shoulder joint, and then finally, what happens if you squeeze your shoulder blades together? What happens if you spread the shoulder blades apart? Aha! She gets a chance to move all of these vertebrae around her upper back and then allow her head to hang down if she wants, because she's able to move through these areas in a way that allows a similar position to downward facing dog without putting excessive compressive force on her hands. There's a little bit, but she's allowed to develop some strength, some mobility through there to be able to compensate when she finally builds up to a point where she wants to try downward facing dog on the mat again. Is it too much at the wrist? Still feels good? Okay. Now, with the with the hand, here's what I want you to think about. When I have my hand here and I completely flatten my palm, that tends to put more pressure on the wrist. What I want the person to do is slowly, they're going to develop an arch in the hand. They're going to be playing. Do you see how my fingers, the palm can kind of pull away? I'm not saying exactly how your hand or how high or how flat it should be, but for most people, much like their foot, they're going to keep a little bit of arch in the palm. You tell me how that feels.
There's less pressure on my hands.
Less pressure again. That's the second time she's said that, and that includes the fact that we're not including as much pressure because she doesn't have gravity pulling her down onto the floor. We have her on the wall. Is there anything from your fingers to your upper back that's uncomfortable? Nope. Okay, how's your low back and legs? And that's exactly the case. I can keep her in this longer to help her develop stamina and also strength through these areas. Now, when she played with her shoulder blades, she can also begin to play. We talked about bend at the elbow, but what about if she's still got her hands here, what about rotation through the arms? If she rotates both arms, so sort of in, and if she rotates the arms out, which one do you prefer? You like the out? So you like when the arms rotate this way? Now, from my vantage point, she's not compromising her hands and wrists. She's not compromising the elbow. She's not compromising the shoulder blades. We're giving her a chance to explore range of motion through these areas. So as Mandy is mobilizing her shoulder blades, her upper arm, her forearms and hands, the first order of business was making sure she feels comfortable through her hands, and then she has all this movement because there's not as much compressive force across these joints. So she's able to move and mobilize. And how do your shoulder joints feel, Mandy? Feels a little tight? Okay. Just maybe like a little bit of restricted. It just doesn't have much range of motion as this other one? Okay. And then I'm trying to see, for Mandy, probably what I would have her do is, so go into your, I guess, full expression of this pose from here. Okay, is it too much in the shoulder joint? Okay, so what I want you to do is, there you go, it was like you lifted. I want you to press into your hands and lift your body just a bit. And when you do that, is that better on your shoulders? Okay, that's probably a better position for her. What I'm trying to get her to do is be mindful of her own shoulder. I'm not trying to get her to push through a joint that's saying, ow, hey, that's too much, because she can overstretch a muscle. I'm not Mandy. My range of motion and my strength is different. So I have to be careful about students and their range of motion and honor their limitations. I'm going to slowly have her come out. There we go. And then Mandy, what I'm going to have you do is you're going to step just a little closer to the wall, and instead of having the hands out like this, I want you to slowly, and I mean this slowly, put the hands down like this so you can lengthen the other side of the forearm. We just spent all of our time lengthening the forearm flexors. Now I want to lengthen the forearm extensors, and she's able to turn her hands and wrists any way she wants to try to lengthen through the forearm extensors. But again, I want to make sure that it's not too much pressure on her wrists. You feel that out there? Okay, it's not too much. You can turn the hands any direction that you want. You may find some of this to be a bit more interesting depending on where you turn. Working on the forearm, in this case specifically the forearm extensors, whereas before it was a little bit more the forearm flexors. Does it feel good in there? Now, what happens if you bend at the elbow just a little bit? There you go. So again, you got to be careful with the wrist, right?
Yeah.
You're like, what am I doing? I'm going to break. You're a praying mantis. Now, she could also do this on the floor, but the reason I like this version is because it's not as much pressure. Her body weight is pressing across. It's not having gravity pull her straight down. So enough length through there makes it feel a little bit better. Now bring the hands back to normal like they were. How does just that little bit feel?
Feels looser.
Looser, yeah. So we're just trying to balance between the forearm extensors and the forearm flexors. The extensors, if Mandy would step back away from the wall. So if Mandy has her arm out, her forearm flexors close into a fist. There you go. Forearm flexors. Now open your hand out. Forearm extensors. So if she does this, that flexes. If she does this, that extends at the extensor side of the forearm. We're just working both of these as agonist and antagonist. They're opposing muscle groups. Many people have very, very tight forearm flexors because we spend most of our life doing what the Buddha told us not to do and grasping too tightly. So Mandy's been putting pressure on her hands and wrists. We talked about the forearm flexors and extensors. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to use some compressive force, some massage, to be able to work on these. So Mandy, come over to the mat here and lay down on your back for me. You'll see that I've put down blankets, and the reason I've done this is because the floor itself would be a little bit too hard. Because I want to be able to work on the forearm flexors and the forearm extensors, I want to make sure that she's covered here at the elbow because I don't want to apply any compressive force that's going to be painful to Mandy. What I want is the radius and ulna side by side. I don't want the person's arm like this. I want them with the palm facing up, which allows the radius and ulna to be side by side. When I step up, I'm using my left leg for balance on the floor. If I was standing on the blanket, sometimes it can feel a little less stable because of the cushion. But if I put my foot here, I'm more stable. I'm able to put the heel down and then apply the gas. You'll notice as I press on Mandy's forearm that I am able to look at the camera and away from what I'm doing. Initially, I want you to be able to look at the receiver, and what I joke about is the eye barometer. If Mandy winces at all in her face, it's usually too much pressure. I've done this enough that I usually know how much pressure I can apply through the forearm to be able to work on this area. This is a perfect way to work on your loved one who's having problems with their hand and wrists. It's also a perfect way as a yoga teacher, as you're walking around the room, you see a student you need to work on, you put a blanket down. You can do this while you verbally instruct the rest of class. Normally what I'll find is this more distal section of the arm isn't quite as important as this thicker portion. I'm not getting into the antecubital space, this junction right at the elbow, but I am in this meaty portion of the forearm flexors. I'm going to go about halfway, maybe a little bit higher. Now you'll see as I apply pressure that Mandy slowly starts to give me the finger, because that's the energy she's been blocking for however many years, because we live in Western culture and she's been trying to tell people and they won't listen because they drive in Austin traffic. So as I put pressure right there, no more than that. Okay, so I'm just going to hang out. You can see that her hand is opened up. That's both from pressure in the forearm flexors, but it's more likely that as I press down, the forearm extensors are getting pressure on the opposite side, so it opened the hand out. What I'm going to have Mandy do is she's slowly going to close her hand into a fist and then pull the fist up towards the elbow and then slowly open the hand out and then have the hand go back to the blanket. Now, can you move your fingers for me? Do you feel that? Yeah. So pin and stretch, something easy that a yoga teacher can do, looking around at the class, instructing everybody else. I'm going to slowly take pressure off because I held that for a little while. Little blood flow there, Mandy? Yeah. There's a little bit of a tourniquet that will happen. If you're working on someone who had a history of stroke or any kind of cardiovascular problems, that's something you might want to avoid, but holding that long enough, Mandy's hand turned pink. The reason it turned pink is there was enough compressive force to affect cardiovascular structures, vascular structures in her arm, which means veins and arteries. It's a very temporary tourniquet. It's very safe. Your hand probably feels nice though, okay, nice and warm. It just forced some blood through that area. It's actually good for that junction at the carpal tunnel. I'm going to go a little bit closer to the elbow. Right. How's that there, Mandy? Okay. Now, more towards the elbow or more towards the wrist?
Towards the elbow.
Okay. More up towards the top of the head or more down towards the feet? Okay. What about there? There we go. So move the hand around for me. Open the fingers out. You can close into a fist if you want. Can you pull it up towards the elbow? And if Sophia comes over, you can open your hand out and whack her. There you go. So holding this pressure here, I'm going to come down slowly. And in Mandy's case, most people spend their time, they're rolling the radius over the ulna. They're typing, they're doing this. I'm gonna use the ball pad, I call it the ball pad, but what I meant was the thenar eminence here to roll the radius open. How's that? Is that too much, Mandy?
No, but I think I can't do any more than that.
In other words, you can't take any more pressure there.
Yeah.
Okay, right there is tender?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right in there. How's that? Not too much? Now, I'm just giving her some additional assistance. And as I let this guy go, you can see that her hand is turned just a little bit more pale. I want to capture a little bit more of that tourniquet effect I talked about. Mandy, can you close your hand kind of rapidly? You see how her hand turns more and more pale, more and more white? So Mandy, let your hand relax there. Do you feel any tingling or like numbness in your fingers? Okay. The reason I bring that up is, one, it makes Mandy feel more secure because I knew what was going on. It's just blood flow. If she fell asleep on her arm, you ever wake up and it's like, ooh, and then your arm flushes? It's the same concept, but you can watch her hand here as I slowly take pressure off. It's gonna pink up, which is just arterial blood flow, that supply returning to her hand and helps flush that out. Very extreme difference, but it's a very safe way of flushing blood through there. And that blood, of course, is just helping the cells move stuff around. It's just facilitating a natural process in a way that allows me from the outside to have some effect on that. It's something good for her, and so long as it's comfortable for the receiver, it's totally fine for them. When you lift your arm now, how does that feel, Mandy? Lighter, yeah. So you'll notice from what we did with downward facing dog pose where she felt pressure and then it was less pressure, and then I did that and she said it felt lighter. Those are generally really good verbal communications to me that she liked what she did, and I'm very likely to step over and then repeat the same on this opposite arm. If she was having more problems with her right side, I would probably focus on the right hand. People who are having problems on their right side, it's typically they're right-handed, the right dominant, they use the right arm for more things, and they're more likely to use their mouse on that dominant side. So as I come over to apply pressure to Mandy's forearm flexors here, I'm finding a comfortable spot near the elbow, but not in the antecubital space, not in the crook of the elbow. Then I'm gonna have Mandy move her hand and arm around any way that she wants. She has more experience of this now because we did this previously. She can curl the hand up towards the elbow if she wants. She can open the hand out. She can move the fingers around. This is a sustained contact, and you'll notice that my heel is down and I applied the gas through the ball pad of the foot. That's a much better way of doing this. It allows me a lot more control, and my right foot in this case is down on the floor, which feels more stable. So as I'm applying pressure to Mandy's forearm flexors, there's that tourniquet effect again as she's moving her hand and arm around. It's completely safe for people who aren't having any sort of cardiovascular issues. It's just a secondary characteristic that affects cardiovascular structures, vascular structures in the arms, meaning arteries and veins. What I'm really applying pressure to is the muscle itself, which is the forearm flexors. I'm going to slowly go ahead and back off. And in Mandy's case, because she's had her arm out, I'm going to slowly lift her arm up just to get a feel through the forearm extensors. I can give her a little bit of traction through the hand and wrist. This is something easy to do if you felt like you'd done somebody in class or worked with someone in class that was having excess tension. I don't know why I can't speak today. If they were having excess tension in their hands and arms, this is tractioning all of those carpals through here that we've been working on. And it also just feels nice, just a little hand massage for someone. I'll often interlace the fingers just to give a bit of traction. And I can do the same thing from the opposite side if I choose to, but I also like doing this little bit of twist just to give them a little bit of length through the arm and forearm, a little bit of pressure through the forearm extensors. It just allows me to say goodbye to Mandy, having worked on her hands and arms so much today. And how does it feel, Mandy?
Feels good.
Good. Thank you so much for working with me today. Thank you for working with me today. If you're ready to watch the full course, you can go to wellnessplus.tv and you can watch it for free on Amazon Prime.
With hundreds of videos that you can stream on virtually any device to help you reduce stress, lose weight, or just improve your health and well-being overall. At wellnessplus.tv, we are dedicated to helping you on your health and wellness journey. Join wellnessplus.tv to find hundreds of videos to help you improve the health of your body and your mind. wellnessplus.tv. Get well, feel better.